Krishna Krishna Hare Ashtotarashata Shri Sriman. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parirajikacharya Ashtotarashata Shri Sriman. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Can we put a Bhagavad Gita setting? Can you just put that one in the same we can. Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Krishna, Jai Krishna, Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you for joining for the Bhakti Sanga. The title for today is True Meaning of Bhakti Sanga. So, we are very grateful to have His Grace Devavrata Prabhu. He has travelled from LA along with very nice group of Brahmacharis. So, I would like to thank Prabhu to come here. He took time to come here and give us his association. I also want, most of you would know him, but I want to give a brief introduction about Prabhu. So, he read Bhagavad Gita as it is, the first chapter at the age of 15. So,
17.
Okay, at the age of 17. Sorry. Thank you. So, and we know that there are so many translations of Bhagavad Gita, but because they are not talking about pure love for Krishna, they do not cause any transformation in the heart. So we can see that seed was sown at that time. And later on, Prabhu got a book at a music festival in 2015. And in 2017, he joined the LA Brahmacari Ashram. After that, even while he was studying at his school, he would go out for book distribution by himself. Such was the impact of reading that book that he received at the music festival. And after joining LA Brahmacari Ashram, he was immediately going for Traveling Sankirtan, living in a van, very simple life. You eat very simply, live very simply, go to bed early, and do your sadhana in the morning really early. Taking cold water, shower, bath. There was no shower, just take shower in India style. You have a water tank.
Indian style, best style.
So he had done all that even while he has grown up in the Western world, but he has taken all that austerities because he has that deep emotion to give his life for the mission of Srila Prabhupada. So we can see that fire he has for making progress in spiritual life. So we have the opportunity to hear from him today, to take some part of that fire in us. We can take it home. And he is going to speak on devotee association, which is that it is the beginning of devotional service, it is in the middle, and even when we are advanced in devotional service, still we need association of devotees. So that is what Prabhu is going to speak about today. Later on, he took initiation from His Grace Vaisesika Maharaj in 2018, and he also receives guidance from His Grace Radheshyam Prabhu, who is he considers as his Siksa Guru. So because of that, he is helping us in this project called BYS to get Indian youth or...
What does BYS mean?
Anybody can tell us.
Bhaktivedanta Youth Services.
Haribo!
Haribo! And he travels 6 months to India to give preaching programs to youth. And 6 months he travels in US doing book distribution and taking care of LA temple, brahmacharis, as we can see here today. So thank you so much, Prabhu, for taking time for us. It's really heartfelt. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone, particularly Prabhu. What's your name, Prabhu? Remind me your name again. Swaradweep? Swaradweep, okay. For allowing me to come here, and also for Lad, but I don't stick around, and Nakul. And also my appreciation for all the cooks who've been here making prasadam since practically sunrise today. Praying Nitai Prabhu. Thank you all very much for having me. It's an honor to be here. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakoya Chakshurim Minitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Parakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarjata Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padana Sagana Navita Shri Vishakamitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadeshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaurabhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Durgame Padime Nantasya Sakala Paragatir Muhur Swakripa Yasti Danina Santa Santa Valambanam Mukun Kulti Vachalam Pangolangayate Girim Yakripa Taraham Vande Shri Guru Diratarinam Paramananda Ishvaram Shri Chaitanya Ishvara. Today's topic is about Sangha. And it's important to contemplate Sangha because the ancient Vedic literature explains that our position in this world is a very precarious one. Dugalayam ashashvatam. And the human form of life comes after a very long time. Srila Prabhupada says in some places many millions of years. It's a very long time. And so to come to the human form of life and to fall into good association is really an amazing benediction. So there's things which we can do to organize our life in such a way we can take advantage of that association. And there's things that we can do which will minimize our ability to take advantage of that association. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, Labhasa durlabha idam bahusam bhavante manusyam arthadam nityam api hadira durnam yate anapatet anamrityava nisheshaya vishayakal tavatavatasya. This verse is explaining that Labhasa durlabha idam bahusam bhavante, that after a very long time you've attained this human form of life which is sudurlabha. So durlabha means rare, and su is like a modifier, which means extremely rare. So this human form of life is attained after a very long time, and simultaneously it's rarely obtained. So it's almost like winning a existential lottery. You somehow cashed in on the prize ticket. You've gotten the human form of life, a form of life which even demigods hanker for, because in this particular circumstance, there's neither too much enjoyment nor too much suffering. So one can be sober to contemplate the ultimate meaning of life. Atato Brahma Jignasya. Now is the time to inquire. Now is the time to ask the question, who am I? In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a verse that says, Muniyo Sada Prishtoham. Begins with that. And it's explaining that questions which are in relationship to our eternal welfare is not only beneficial for the person who asked it, but it's actually beneficial for the entire world. The entire world becomes uplifted by such questions. So most of the time, people are busy asking questions with this rare human form of life into various combinations and permutations, which the Bhagavad Gita explains as Bahu Shaka Hrinantascha. It's a many-branched endeavor. There's many directions which those questions go in. The problem is that those questions don't actually have any substance. They lack maturity, and they lack proper awareness of our ultimate welfare. So it's important to consider what is our ultimate welfare, but before we can consider our ultimate welfare, let's think about what are the questions that people generally ask. People generally ask questions of how can I find happiness in relationship to the material senses. There's 3 obstacles Krishna mentions which block one's spiritual progress, which is Raga, Bhaya, and Krodha. Raga means inordinate attraction for the material sense objects. And it goes like this. Dayate Vishayam Pumsam. Dayato Vishayam Pumsam. Kama Tesu Vijayate. Kama Sanjayate Kaman. Kama Krodha Vijayate. That association begins on the level of contemplation. What we contemplate will determine what we associate with ultimately. So this is why the Vedic literatures begin with saying Atato Brahma Jignasya. Contemplate this. Ask this question. Because by asking this question, you'll begin to associate with that vibration. You'll begin to move in that direction. The questions that we ask propel us into the direction that we'll go in our life. Our prana will move in the direction that our questions, by the quality of our questions. Our life will move in the direction according to the quality of questions that we ask. So this verse, Dayato Vishayam Pumsam, Kama Tesu Vijayate, that by contemplating the sense objects, one develops a desire to want to enjoy them. And then Sangat Sanjayate Kaman, by being in touch with that contemplation and interacting with those sense objects, one develops desires in relationship to those sense objects. Sense objects can be people, sense objects can be things, sense objects can be position, but this is the platform of raga. And if those material desires aren't fulfilled, the Bhagavad Gita explains kama tesu vijayate, that kama krodha vijayate, that you will develop anger. You'll become frustrated. Has anyone been frustrated before? No. Everyone gets frustrated, but actually frustration is diametrically opposite to who we are. We're not meant to get frustrated. So this is another entanglement that the living entity finds himself, is this krodha. So due to raga and unfulfilled desires, one falls into the category of krodha. And then finally, due to being unsure whether those desires will be fulfilled or not, being unsure whether our circumstance will be to the way we've mapped it out in our mind, Shruti Sukha. The happiness in this world is only heard of, and then according to what we've heard, we begin to make plans moving in the direction of that happiness. So, we hear about some wonderful place. What's a wonderful place people hear about? Where? Hawaii. Yeah, Hawaii is a good one. What's another place people think of?
Yosemite.
What?
Yosemite
National Park. Okay, that's good.
Paris.
I'm looking for something a little bit less. Paris is. I'm getting closer. I'm looking for something more Tomasic.
Vegas.
Las Vegas. Perfect. Las Vegas. Or Disneyland. The two answers I was looking for was Las Vegas and Disneyland. So when you go to Disneyland, people think that I'm gonna go to this theme park, and what am I gonna do there? I'm gonna meet a gigantic mouse. Sounds like a great time. A round of applause for such an endeavor. Yeah, that's the round of applause you get for making such a plan. So you hear about Disneyland, and they spend millions of dollars to make it look like the happiest place on earth. How many of you have been driving in Southern California before? All of you, okay. How many of you have driven on the I-5 in Orange County? How many of you grew up on the I-5 in Orange County? Okay. So when you were growing up, Brian, I'm sure you saw a lot of advertisements for Disneyland.
Oh yeah.
What was your favorite advertisement for Disneyland? The one that really touched your heart?
Probably the big picture of Mickey Mouse. One I remember it. Hare Krishna. Yeah, there's a big picture of the Mickey Mouse, the roller poster in the background, and it said, "Happiest place on earth."
Happiest place on earth. Or where dreams come true. And then they have a picture of a little girl hugging, I don't know the Disney's characters. Cinderella. There we go. Hugging Minnie Mouse. Where dreams come true. So then the kids say, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy, can we go to Disneyland?" And then the parents being so infatuated by the childish talks. Vlad Maharaj talks about this in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The parents become enchanted by these childish talks of the children. My Daddy, Daddy, Mommy, Mommy. And the husband hears, "My dear husband." All these talks are going on in the ears of those in such a life. And then, so what do? They begin to make plans. They begin to contemplate. So their consciousness begins to move in that direction. They have to bring the money together. When I was growing up, we went to Disneyland, and I think it was $60 at that time per person. Last time I checked, it's about $200 a person, just to enter the park. What to speak of buying a $100 T-shirt, which you have to get, otherwise none of your friends will know that you went for the 100th anniversary of Disneyland. So then you get into Disneyland, and then the first thing that you get exposed to is $100 T-shirts, $20 photographs, $15 ice cream cones, and your kids immediately want the ice cream cone, by the way. Because you know why they want the ice cream cone? Because it's shaped like Mickey Mouse. So basically what happens is the plans that we make in relationship to the material energy, I won't talk about Disneyland anymore. The plans that we make in relationship to material sense gratification, they're only heard about. The happiness that comes from it is only heard about. But once you're actually there in Disneyland, you're standing in lines which go for 2 hours, and furthermore, you stand in a line to get a ticket to stand in a line. So this is the happiness which is painted by the material energy. It paints a really beautiful picture, and we believe the picture. We fall in love with the picture. Yehi samsparsa javaboka, dukkha yonaya evate, advayantanta kaunteya, nate shruva matevuda. But the Bhagavad Gita says that wise sages, they don't contemplate this. They don't contemplate this picture of the material energy. Why? Because they know that as soon as they come in contact with it, it's not going to produce happiness, but rather that association produces dukkha yone evate. It's a womb of suffering. It's simply a womb of suffering. What's in the womb? Oh, just a big baby of suffering. That's all you get to look forward to. Is just a baby of suffering. So, what do the Vedas say? What do the Vedas say? They say, Vitaraga Bhayakrota Manmaya Manupashatam Bahavo Jnana Tapasa Bhuta Baba Bhuta Mad Baba Agata. Is it Agata or Ashata? Agata. Bhuta Mad Baba Agata. So what this is saying is that you can give up this raga, you can give up this bhaya, this fearfulness which arises of, are my plans going to get fulfilled? Are my plans for material sense enjoyment going to get fulfilled? There's that fear, this underlying fearfulness, that if things don't go the way I expect, what's going to happen? What's going to happen if I don't get that promotion? What's going to happen if I don't get the car? What's going to happen if my wife leaves me? These things just run circles and circles in the mind, and it actually completely victimizes the living entity. Prakriti purushasto hi ponte prakritir janguna kananam guna sangosyat sarasadyoni janmasu. And due to this contemplation, due to this association with the material energy, one develops a conception of who they are. Yaya samohito jivo atmanam shri gunatmakam paropi manate nartham takritam na pipadyate. That the living entity, although transcendental to this material body, although completely different, asangohayam hi purushaha, although not this material body, although having nothing to do with the modes of material nature, considers oneself to be the material body. And within that material body, bhayam vinibeshitasya, that one is always in a fearful condition. If you've ever watched birds in the morning, as they're going out and getting food, or practically animate animals for that matter. Particularly, I've noticed squirrels, and they have a good reason to be scared. I learned that at Fresno State University. The dogs hate them. Or I think the dogs love them, but they hate the dogs. So, these living entities, all living entities, due to identification with this temporary circumstance of the material body, are constantly in anxiety, bhaya. They're fearful. Because this material energy is very precarious. So, the Vedas say that if you want to overcome this, you have to engage in jnana tapasa. Which, jnana tapasa is a very interesting concept. Jnana tapasa is a process of making the endeavor to acquire knowledge. Making the endeavor to really understand what is this all about, and categorically separating material energy from spiritual energy. Bhumir napanalo vayu kahamanu burevacha ahankara iti yanme binam prakritirashtata apareyami daswanyam prakritim vidimeparam. That this living entity, you're not the material body. And this material body that you possess is just composed of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And you also have a subtle body which is also material, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So with that in mind, you can undergo the process of detaching yourself from that material body. Anartho pasanam sakshat bhakti yoga matoksaje lokasya janato vidvams chakre satvava samhitam. That's why the Srimad Bhagavatam was composed. Is that because seeing this unnatural state of life that the living entity is exposed to, Krishna feels compassion for us. He has our best interest at heart. Atmanam akhilatmanam. And furthermore, our best self-interest is Krishna's self-interest. So Krishna is very concerned with our elevation. That's why he's known in the Bhagavad Gita as Sudadam Sarva Bhutana. He's our best well-wishing friend. And so how does he show compassion to the living entities? How does he make himself accessible to the living entities? Is through the medium of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this will eradicate this bodily conception of life. So this jnana tapasa, it can't be performed by oneself. Many people think that I can disconnect myself from this world and leave it, go into the mountains, and just practice meditation. But actually, that's not recommended. Because more powerful than just renouncing this world is engaging with it, but with a transcendental vision that everything belongs to Krishna. Anasaktasya vishayan yarata upayunjataha nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yukta vairagyam uchate. that real renunciation is not simply to renounce this world as being false, but real renunciation is to see that your attachment to it is false and your identification of possessing it is false. And that actually everything is the property of Krishna and everything can be engaged in Krishna's service. So where does one learn that science? Where does one develop the knowledge, the jnana tapasa? Where does one undergo the austerity to acquiring that knowledge? It's in the association of devotees. Because in the association of devotees, there's able opportunity to contemplate the ultimate goal of life. Tasma ekena manasa bhagavat sattvatam vitihi shotvayas kirtayas yascha dehas pujas to nityada. I'm currently memorizing that one. Thank you. That you'll be given full facility in the association of devotees to just tasma ekena manasa, just completely fix your mind on shotvayas kirtayas yascha. That you can just hear and chant to your heart's content 24 hours a day, and the devotees, they don't want to stop either. They actually derive pleasure from this. Jimmy, you know the verse? No, 10th chapter, 9th verse. Machita makata pranas bodhayantas parasparam. What is it? Katayantas chamam nitya tusyanti cha ramanti cha. Now the devotees, they're constantly in this vibration of contemplating the absolute truth. And in this contemplation, they're feeling unlimited satisfaction. Whereas people are yelling at their kids at Walmart and yelling at their kids at Disneyland and yelling at their kids at in Paris and Las Vegas, sitting by the pool in Miami, just yelling at your kids. What are the devotees doing? Tusyanti cha ramanti cha. And how are they getting it? From Krishna Kata. Kata yantas chamam nityam. They're just doing this constantly. They never stop. And this is actually the ultimate goal of life. If you can arrange your life in such a way that you can be with individuals and be immersed in a vibration which is completely transcendental. And this is recommended by everyone. Vajare munayotagre, dharman, bhagavatam madhoksaja, satvam vishudam shemayam, kalpante nanutaniha. That this process of getting into the association of devotees, staying in the association of devotees, and keeping the transcendental vibration going 24/7. This has been done by all sages in the past. And anyone that accepts that process, the way the sages did it, they become eligible for attaining the same result as the sages attained. So the best way to get this vibration going in your life, and the best way to make a commitment that I want to be in Sadhu Sangha, is to have a Srimad Bhagavatam in your home. Because by having a Srimad Bhagavatam, you're not only getting ink and paper. Actually, what you're receiving is the association of all the Mahajanas throughout time. You're receiving the association of Narada Muni. You're receiving the association of Srila Shukadev Goswami. You're receiving the association of Srila Parikshit Maharaj, the association of Lord Shiva, the association of King Prithu. And furthermore, you're receiving direct association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Simply by attentively and regularly studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, one can be always absorbed in this. And what will happen from that is Nasu Prayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. This feeling that I just want to do this constantly. I just always want to be the devotees. That will be fixed in your heart. Naishtaki. There will be no consideration of going to Disneyland or Las Vegas. No contemplation of anything within this material world will enter your heart and mind. And the result of that is you'll be constantly happy. And furthermore, you will feel empowered to want to go give this same experience to everyone that you meet. So it's our birthright to take full shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Labhasa durlabha idam bahusam bhavante manusyam arthadam anityam api hadira. This human form of life is extremely rare. It's very, very difficult to achieve. It's achieved after many, many millions of years. And although it's temporary, it offers one the opportunity to attain the greatest artha. And what is that artha? That artha is the attainment of the association of devotees and the absorption in the Srimad Bhagavatam and the chanting of Krishna's holy names. And when should one do this? The Srimad Bhagavatam says, Turnam yatet anapatet anumritya yavam. You should do this immediately. Turnam means do it immediately. Don't wait, because this human form of life is precarious. Life in general is precarious. You can walk out the door and get hit by a car or a bus at any moment. But if you just make one effort, one step towards the Srimad Bhagavatam, saying, this is what I'm going to contemplate, the result of that is Neha Vikramanashtosi Pratatvayo Navidyate. So Alpamappa Siddharmasta Trayate Mahatobaya. You'll be saved from the greatest type of fear by just a small fraction of this contemplation. A small fraction of this contemplation will guarantee you a human form of life where you can continue on with this contemplation, despite the fact that maybe 99.9% of your life was absorbed in contemplating in material energy. If today you make the commitment, I'm going to purchase Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm going to associate with the devotees, and I'm going to take the first step in this direction. All I don't feel fully convinced now, what that guy was saying in there, although he's crazy, makes a lot of sense. So if you just make that step, then Krishna notices that step. And even if anything, whatever may happen to you in the course of your life, even if you never touch the book again, Krishna will remember that person has a Srimad Bhagavatam. So he gets a human form of life. And furthermore, Krishna will put you in a specific circumstance where you can continue on with that contemplation with full abandon. With complete abandon. And you'll be one of these kids that are dancing inside of the temple. So nice seeing them. Some of them are very sober, actually. So, I request all of you, you've been given this human form of life. Furthermore, some of you in this room have been given birth in Bharata Bhumi. So you have a specific assignment which has been given to you. It's not by accident that you've taken birth in Bharat Bhumi. The Bhagavad Gita says, Shariram yadavatnoti yachchaviyu prama ishvara grihe vaitani samyanti vayur gandan ivashaya. To take birth in Bharat Bhumi means that you've carried some fragrance of spiritual contemplation into this life. And in order to facilitate that contemplation, you've taken birth in the land of Bharat, where even if you just walk around, you'll hear the name of Krishna constantly, just by walking around. I love distributing books in India, because I can just go up to people and say Hare Krishna and hand them a book and they know exactly what I'm doing. It's amazing. So you've all taken birth in this exalted, wonderful land of Bharat Bhumi. So you've been given a very particular assignment. Many countries are trying to offer so many things to the world. America is so-called setting an example for economic development, and the British thought they were setting the example in terms of culture. But now it's India's turn to set the example. Now it's India's turn to set the example for a spiritual revolution. And that spiritual revolution specifically should come from the youth of India, who have come to America, made a lot of money, and then utilize that money to give the holy name and the Srimad Bhagavatam to everyone that they meet. This is the assignment you've been given. That's why you've come to America. That's why you've been born in India. So please, on the request of my humble self, and the request of Kultukarnava, and the request of everyone living in the BYS, and furthermore the request of all the previous acharyas come in the line, of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. I humbly beg you, I fall at your feet. Dandeni chaya chanakam parayorni patya kritvad sakakum sata ekadahan bravimi. Hey sadava sakalaveva vihaya dura. Goranga chandra charane kunutara ragam. I put a straw between my teeth. I fall at your feet over and over and over again. And I praise you as being wonderful, glorious, enlightened, cultured, young Indian men. And I just ask you one thing. Forget everything that you've ever thought you known and surrender to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Take the Srimad Bhagavatam, associate with the devotees, and take advantage of this human form of life by being absorbed in the transcendental vibration of the Sankirtan movement. Hare Krishna.
Haribol!
So, on that note, are there any questions or reflections? Yes, Prabhu. We have two. 1, 2.
Thanks Prabhu for this very powerful lecture.
Whoa.
Yeah, my just very small question I was thinking is that, like, as you explained that human form of life is so rare and it comes to after millions or billions of years, and then still we see such a huge population who is not, like, I mean, even within India, like, there is not utilizing this. So I'm just wondering, like, what is Krishna's motive in giving them free chances like that?
Prayinalpa idapsabhya kalo vasmin yagejanaha manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya pripatabraha. That we're not living in a very nice place at this particular time. This time is not meant for people who are extraordinarily wonderful. There's 4 divisions of the time cycle, as you are probably well aware of Satya, Treta, and Dwarpa, and then finally Kali. And these different ages are there to facilitate different dimensions of consciousness which exist within the creation. So the Kali Yuga is specifically there to facilitate a more materialistic disposition, so those desires can be lived out, because Krishna seated within everyone's heart. Sarvasya chaham hridi sani vishnu matasmitir jnanam apodhanam cha. That Krishna seated within everyone's heart, and He knows our heart, He knows our desire. And if we desire something, it's not that Krishna will not let it happen. Krishna will facilitate it, but He'll do it in such a way that it's meant to make us introspective. So the reason why you see things the way they are is because this is not a time where most people are going to be interested in spirituality. That's why it's your responsibility and duty to read the Srimad Bhagavatam and give people that opportunity. Because unless we have people like you who understand the science of Srimad Bhagavatam and are able to convince people of its value, then these people are going to hell in a handbasket. So there is hope, because in Kali Yuga, the process of self-realization has been made very easy. Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishna Samgo Pangashta Parshadam Yagyar Sankirtanir Prayir Yajan Hi Sumedhasaha. That those who are intelligent, Sumedhasaha, they will see the value of the chanting of Krishna's names. They will see that this makes a lot of sense. So they'll take advantage of it. But the only way for them to take advantage of it is if devotees go out and give the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in order for devotees to go out, we need living entities who are convinced that I want to be a devotee. So the best way to become convinced that I want to be a devotee is to read the Srimad Bhagavatam. If you read the Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, you will attain a very high level of spiritual stature. And that spiritual stature will move people. And this is open to anyone. Kippa Vipra Kippa Nasti Sudra Kahinoi. Ye Krishna Tattva Veda Se Guru Hoy. That most religions in the world, and the most times in the history of religion, the process of giving knowledge, and even sometimes the process of receiving knowledge, is extremely limited. But the teaching of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the teaching of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is that if you can become convinced of this, and you can become fixed in it, then you're qualified to be a guru, no matter what your background is. That's why you have an American speaking about the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. Not that I'm a great person, but I've received the mercy of the Guru Parampara, I've received the mercy of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And if I simply try to represent that, and not make myself the center, but just represent that, then the message can have potency. So this is open to anyone. This opportunity is open to anyone. And it's good work if you can get it. If you can become an instrument for the message of Bhagavad Gita, if you can become an instrument for the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, the effect that you'll have on the world is more powerful than any American or Indian president.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. I think you had the next question, right? Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I think it's helpful for other people, right?
Mainly for the people
The
listening
online.
online. Yeah.
Very compassionate.
Thank you for the wonderful class. It was pretty well structured, I felt. So I have a couple of questions, starting from like you mentioned that even demigods hanker for human form of life. So, like, do we see any references from the scriptures that justify that?
Yes, in the Srimad Bhagavatam there is a verse. I'll have to find it for you because I don't know it right off the top of my head. You might know it, right? Verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam that's saying that demigods are lining up to take advantage of Kali Yuga. You know it?
So there's one in the third canto, description of the Bhakti Sanga, where Brahma is talking about how the kingdom from the Bhakti is desired even like demigods.
Yeah.
So it's in chapter 15 for the third canto.
Yeah, for chapter 15 of the third canto. Jimmy can find the reference for you if you speak with him after. He loves doing that type of stuff. And he's really good at it too.
Now, going back to Disneyland, so
Going back to Disneyland. I don't want to go back to Disneyland.
so as we discussed that making such plans could be is tamasic, as we discussed, but like how would you deal a situation where so ideally you don't desire to go there, but since if a devotee is for a grihastha, if someone is involved in that environment where he cannot continuously say no to the kid, like because kid won't understand, right? Like so like how would you tackle that? Like would that still be called tamasic, where you would like, okay, for once we can go, and then it's like, okay, like how would you tackle that situation then?
Well, I would give him a higher taste.
Like what if like the kid is not able to, not just kid, like even let's say.
Yeah, one thing is that parents get a choice. I'm not a parent, as you can see, nor do I plan on being one. But I'd imagine that if you are a parent, you get a little bit of options as to what you want to expose your child to, at least within the home. And that can become so refined that some people choose to live in communities which are particularly protected from these types of vibrations. So this is why the Srimad Bhagavatam says that unless you're prepared to deliver a child, unless you're prepared to deliver a student, unless you're prepared to deliver a disciple, one should not become a parent, one should not become a teacher, and one should not become a guru. Unless one is ready to undergo the austerity of exposing this living entity to the right vibrations. So the responsibility of a parent is a very grave one, and I would say that it would require a lot of contemplation and thoughtfulness on the part of the parents to take all of these things into consideration before they choose on having a child to begin with. Because these things have to be dealt with tactfully. So there's no easy answer, but the answer that has to be there in order to protect the consciousness of the parent and to protect the consciousness of the child is no.
So lastly, you were discussing that contemplation, like it talks about like devotees enjoy contemplating all the pastimes of the Lord.
Correct.
So what if you're talking to someone like when we are preaching in general and we are selling this point of happiness to everyone, and everyone is searching for happiness at a wrong place, and then you say, okay, chanting would give you peace, then it would give you the higher taste.
Yeah.
So like we don't feel it like initially, or let's say we don't feel it for a long time unless someone is really. Yeah. So like, how would you what would you tell someone who's like, but I don't feel it, like let's say someone like we see even devotees who are doing it for quite some years, they don't feel that taste, like 10-15 years or something like that, but they're still getting into the process.
Someone's been practicing for 10 or 15 years, they have to be getting a taste. There's no way you can go on practicing Krishna consciousness for 10 or 15 years without getting a taste. Because 10 or 15 years of continuous practice of Krishna consciousness is indicative of the fact that they're getting some taste. Because everyone has to get some type of taste within this world in order to do anything. So, if I've understood your question properly, let's say someone's not getting a taste, how do we convince them? I would say that Krishna consciousness doesn't work like that. Krishna consciousness will give a taste. The issue is not so much with the process, the issue is with us. Or the issue is with the person that's coming in contact with the process. If they're holding anything back, to that degree, Krishna will also hold back. Because Krishna is just ready to reciprocate according to how much we're willing to get into it. So unless, like Prabhupada says in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, one has to at least theoretically accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to appreciate the message of the Bhagavad Gita. So one has to just theoretically surrender and at least give some part of themselves to practicing Krishna consciousness with full abandon. Because unless you do that, the reciprocation that you get will be very little. But to the degree that you give yourself to the chanting, to the degree that you give yourself to association, to the degree that you give yourself to the Srimad Bhagavatam, and not just read the Srimad Bhagavatam, but apply the Srimad Bhagavatam, the natural result is that one is just going to be completely elated. Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Mam Nasochati Nikashati Sabasarme Subhutesu Mad Bhaktim Labate Varam. They'll just be jolly all the time. Prasanatma. So, to the degree that one applies themselves, to that degree. And I would say that if one's going 10 or 15 years without getting a taste, they need to evaluate what is their program of sadhana bhakti. Because sadhana bhakti, as one progresses, becomes more exacting. And it's not just a whimsical, sentimental thing, but it's a scientific process that one has to apply carefully. Just like any type of practice. Our dear Danny, he's like he's a master in martial arts actually. Now he'll tell you, because he has years and years of practice, that if you have a little bit of faulty practice on like one kick, that's going to create problems for you down the line, right? Yeah. Just like one thing out of place. I listen to him. He's always coaching people because he helps people with their moves. Luckily, I haven't taken any lessons. I would be a worse student. But he's always helping people, you know, he says a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that. Why is that? Because what he's doing is a science. It's not just a whimsical thing. In the same way, Krishna consciousness is a science. So we have to surround ourselves with mentors. We have to assign ourselves with counselors who can tell us, who can look at our practice on a piece of paper and say, you're missing this, you need more of this, you need less of this. Unless you have that guidance and you're going on practicing and saying, oh, it doesn't work anyways. It's like It's like the story of the sour grapes. You've ever heard the story of the sour grapes? There was a coyote, and there was these grapes hanging from a tree, and he was trying to bite them, and he was 2 inches too short every time. And then at one point he just gave up, and he said, "Oh, the grapes were sour anyways." So in the same way, if we don't align ourselves with the process scientifically, then we can't expect to get the scientific result. So I would say that you have to evaluate what is the quality of your practice, what is the quantity of your practice, and how much does that align with the conclusions of the Shastra, the conclusions of the sadhus, and the conclusions of Guru. If you're in alignment with those 3 things, then I can guarantee you're going to be swimming in an ocean of transcendental nectar.
Last question,
Yes.
How do we make sure that our sadhana is not becoming mechanical?
How do you make sure? You can see for yourself. There's a nice verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam where it says that through the application of a medicinal ointment, one can experience for themselves how their health is returning. So the better question is, how do we avoid a mechanical practice? Because that's easy to fall into at any moment. And the best way is that there has to be some eagerness. Krishna Bhakti Bhavatamiti Kriyatam Yati Katopi Labhite Tatalolyam Api Mulyam Ekalam Janmakoti Sukritari Labhite. You have to get some lolyam. You have to get some greed. You have to get some intensity. You have to experience dissatisfaction with your current status of life. You have to say, I'm tired of being a mudha. I'm tired of chasing after sense objects. I'm tired of settling for a life of complacency and a mundane atmosphere of life. I'm tired of all this. I'm sick and tired. And what's the result? That dissatisfaction will act as fuel for your practice. And then when you're contemplative about the circumstances of your life and how miserable they are, juxtaposed to what the Srimad Bhagavatam says, this is what you're capable of. And then you compare and contrast that with what you're currently experiencing. We should feel dissatisfaction. We should feel, I can do better than this. I can do more than this. And in such a circumstance, when you chant the holy names, when you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll give your entire heart to it. So we have to learn to become dissatisfied with material life.
Thank you so much.
Drew, I found the verse. Would you like to share it?
That'd be great.
Yeperkitam pichanan rikatim prapanna Dhyanam chatatva vishayam sahadharmam yatra Narandanam bhagavata vikarantyamushya Samohita vitatataya patamaya yate. Lord Brahma said, my dear demigods, the human form of life is of such importance that we also desire to have such life. For in the human form one can attain perfect religious truth and knowledge. If one in this human form of life does not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His abode, it is to be understood that he is very much affected by the influence of external nature. Verse number, 3rd canto, 15th chapter, verse number 24.
Dr. Brian, you had a question?
Thank you for the class, brother. I wanted to know if you could give me like a step-by-step, detailed explanation on what happens as soon as you step outside of the association of devotees. What happens from that moment until the fall down? Just curious about that.
Oh, so when you step out of the association of devotees.
Yeah.
Well, if you think of the association of devotees as a fort that protects you from dayato vishayamkum, some contemplation of material sense gratification. As soon as you step outside of the association of devotees, some feedback coming. You can turn your microphone on, Brian. That will help. So as soon as you step outside the association of devotees, what happens is you step outside of the fort. And as soon as you step outside of the fort, you're on a battlefield. And this battlefield isn't taking place with guns and weapons and all these types of things. This battle, and it's not on a field. It's not, in some random remote country. This war is taking place within our mind. So, Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavad Gita that the domain of Maya is the mind. So as soon as we step out of the association of devotees, or as soon as we step out of the vibration of the association of devotees, because one could be on their own, but absorbed in the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, and they're getting all association with all the Mahajanas who are existing in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So as soon as one steps outside of that vibration and thinks, I got this, I can do this on my own. Dayato Vishayam Pumsam. Kama Tesu Vijayate. Kama Sanjayate. Kama Sanjayate. Kama Sangat. Sangat Sanjayate Kama. Kama Kroda Vijayate. Immediately one becomes captured. Krishna Bhairmukha Bhoga Vanchakare Nikatastana Mayatare Japadiya Dari. That as soon as one turns their face from Krishna, turning your face from the devotees means turning your face from Krishna. Because before the sun rises, you have the rays of the sun. Before you get the full effulgence of the sun, you get the rays of the sunshine. And those rays of the sunshine is explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to be the devotees. So before you see Krishna, you see the devotees. And if you turn away from the devotees, Krishna Bhairmukha Bhoga Vanchakare. Krishna Bhairmukha means you go from looking at Krishna to looking out for material enjoyment. And so what happens next? Nikatastana Mayatare Japadiyadari. One becomes captured by Maya. And that capture takes place within our mind. And so what happens is the thinking, feeling, and willing is no longer directed towards the activities of serving the devotees, hearing the holy names, reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, engaging in the missionary activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The mind begins to contemplate Bahu Shaka Hridantascha, an unlimited varieties of material enjoyment which exists within this world. Unlimited number of commutations and permutations which fall under different headings. But it's the same three colors. Red, green, and yellow. That's all you get in this material world. You get three options, and you get a mix of all three of them all mixed together. So as soon as you step out of the association of devotees, you step out of the fort. When you step out of the fort, you become captured by Maya within your mind, and then contemplation on sense gratification takes place. And that thinking leads to contemplation, to plan making, and that plan making leads to action. And that action entangles one in material life more and more. And what does one become entangled in? They become entangled within their own mental impressions. They become absorbed in their own mental impressions. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful lecture and great reminder for myself personally about reading Srimad Bhagavatam. I've personally gone through a journey of from reading it and then stopping it and rereading it, so like those are the ups and downs. I want to learn about best practice of to continue engaging with reading without having that large amount of gaps. And the two observations in my experience has been like association is the best, like when you are reading through like things like BASE, and there are online programs out there which has this reading thing. But none of those have like worked perfectly in timing for me because I have to travel a lot for my work.
Sure.
So the one thing that I've tried myself is like keeping a default browser window that every time I open a browser on my laptop, both work and personal, the way that base opens up and I know that I have to read.
Yeah.
But even after that, I I'm unable to go back to reading it as much. The frequency and time duration has not worked out. So I'm looking for some advice or best practices to continue reading without having a lot of gaps between those readings.
Yeah, maintenance is always easier than creation.
Yeah.
Maintenance is always easier than creation. So I would say that you gotta find someone who's compassionate to your circumstance, and you guys just work out something together. And also just hold yourself accountable. That's another thing, is just hold yourself accountable for your own spiritual advancement. Take responsibility, because whatever it is that you think is more important is probably not that important. So the more that you can engineer a strong habit into your life, the more that will lead to making better choices in the future. Also, there's no problem with just taking a few days off of work and really making it a sankalpa, just to absorb yourself in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because from doing that, what will happen is you'll develop a great taste for reading, and you'll develop a great taste for being with devotees in association. And then when you go back to work, you'll figure out, how do I adjust things in such a way that I can do this within this context? Because it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of taste.
Lord Prabhuji, Sankalpa is what I was looking for.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
And Krishna Satya Sankalpa. So if you align with his Sankalpa, then your Sankalpa will always be successful.
Prabhuji, I have one more question on
sure.
that. This is with regards to how do we help others who may not have the same amount of association with devotees or even Krishna consciousness. So in my circle of friends, there are many people who may not be believers in either way. And they usually come and share their personal frustrations with their, let's say, work, career, personal lives, and so on. I
Share with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they, like as friends, they come out and lecture, hey, something went wrong, and so on. So being a listener, I sometimes do try to tell them, hey, you can visit a temple, maybe chant, or read Srimad Bhagavatam or Prabhupada's books. But usually they are not very receptive towards such advices. So I don't try to give them this same thing over and over. How do we, in the period of time, I was expecting they would at some point get started or take step one, but I've not seen that. So any advice in that direction?
Well, generally people are sentimental. They're existing on the mental platform, that's why they're sentimental. So what I recommend is just to contemplate this idea that people don't care how much you know, but people know how much you care. So sometimes care doesn't necessarily always come through the medium of giving tips and advice. Sometimes care just comes in the medium of listening, hearing out the circumstance that they're in, and feeling compassion for it, and giving something that they can relate with then and there. Prasadam, or whatever it may be. You have to get creative and take guidance. But if you can really just be a person that always carries the vibration of Srimad Bhagavatam with you everywhere, but you're simultaneously compassionate to people's circumstances, and also know when it's not your place to get involved. It's a principle of someone who's trying to spread the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam, to utilize discrimination. Ishvare taradineshu balitesheshu balitvesheshu satsyucha prema maitri kripopeksha yakaroti samadhyamaha. That you should develop love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, through the reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, through the chanting of the holy names. You should develop friendship with the devotees. You should develop compassion and show mercy to the innocent. And you should neglect the envious. Neglect those who aren't ready. Because if you agitate them too much, it can actually be more detrimental to their spiritual life, because they could become offensive to the Srimad Bhagavatam, they could become offensive to you, they could become offensive to the holy name, and this creates more obstacles in their spiritual life. So sometimes the best fertilizer for a fruit is for it just to stay on the tree. You don't have to, pick and pull it so much. It just needs more time on the tree. And in due course, the scorching rays of the material energy will ripen them up and make them receptive to your humble disposition.
Thank you so much for it. This is super helpful.
It's not working. What will the people on
Hare
the
Krishna.
do?
Yeah, thanks for the great lecture. So I have a question. So when I go to work, for example, we have to associate with people who are not into Krishna consciousness or anything. And in fact, they're like breaking all kinds of regulations, meat eating and all kinds of things. So that really at least impacts my consciousness and takes me away from all the principles we should follow and all that. So how do you deal with all of that at work, since you have to work but you cannot avoid meeting all these people at work who don't care about these things?
Thank you so much for asking that question, because I get asked that question practically everywhere that I go. And I've never felt very confident about the answer that I gave, but recently I was reading the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and I found the best answer. So you are the first person I'm able to give this answer to. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a pastime of the Kumara Hatta Brahmana. Who's from Kumara Hatta? Anyone? Come on. You've been to Kumara Hatta? Anyone? Anyone's ever heard of Kumara Hatta? Who's not a devotee? No? You've heard of it from Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? Okay. Anyone who's never read Chaitanya Charitamrita heard of Kumara Hatta? Anyways, the only deity in existence of Kurmadev is in Kumara Hatta. That's probably how it got its name. So anyways, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing throughout South India, completely intoxicated with transcendental love for Krishna. And as he was chanting and dancing, every person that he came in contact with, he would embrace them, and they become intoxicated with transcendental love for Krishna. And then those people would go out and meet people, and they become intoxicated. And in this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was inundating all of South India with transcendental love for Krishna. So he came to this town of Kumarahatta, and in this town was a Brahmana whose name isn't mentioned, so we'll refer to him as the Kumara Brahmana. So the Kumara Brahmana was saying that he invited Chaitanya Mahaprabhu over to his home. Him and his family washed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feet, and they also cooked for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They drank the water and took the remnants. This is the proper culture for receiving a guest. And then, what happens after that? Oh, thank you very much. This is an important note. I don't want to lose this. What happened was, the Brahmana said the following thing to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. To Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kripakara Prabhu More Yantaha Sange Sahitena Pariduka Visaya Tarange. My dear Lord, kindly show me favor and let me go with you. So basically, the Kumara Hatta Brahmana, he wants to leave his circumstance. He's a family man, he has children, he's working, doing Brahminical activities. But this is what he says: I can no longer tolerate the waves of misery caused by materialistic life. Now he's living in a pristine Vedic environment, which is ideal for spiritual advancement. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. Prabhu kahe achi bat, Prabhu na kaiba, grihe rahi Krishna nama, nirantara laiba. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, don't speak like that again. Better to remain at home and chant Hare Krishna, and always chant the holy names of Krishna. And then he gives a second instruction. And this is considered to be the guiding principle for the Sankirtan movement. For the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is an open order to everyone. Yari deka tahe kaha Krishna upadesh Amara Agnaya Guru Tanade Dish. He says, become well versed in the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Become well versed in the message of the Bhagavad Gita, and teach that message to everyone that you meet. And by doing this, you become a guru and liberate the land. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was given 2 instructions, actually 3 instructions. 3 instructions. Thank you. 3 instructions. Always chant Hare Krishna. Study the Srimad Bhagavatam and read Bhagavad Gita and become well versed in it, and be a guru and liberate the land. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says the following thing. Are you all ready?
Yes.
That was it. Kulta Karnava is ready. Is anyone else ready? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives the Kumarahata Brahmana a benediction. Kabuna Badipe Tomara Visaya Taranga Purapi Etani Pabe Morasanga. If you follow this instruction, your materialistic life at home will not obstruct your spiritual advancement. Indeed, if you follow these regulative principles, we will again meet here. Or rather, you will never lose my company. So you get 2 benedictions if you follow these 3 instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 3 instructions are? Second instruction? 3rd instruction? And then, if you follow this instruction, you get 2 benedictions. Your advancement in spiritual life will never be obstructed. And furthermore, you'll never lose the association, the personal association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Srila Prabhupada specifically says in his purport that anyone who follows this will be fully protected from the material energy. So the principle is always chant Hare Krishna, study the Srimad Bhagavatam sincerely, and extend yourself to give this message to other people. And by doing so, you'll be protected by Krishna. Devi hi esha gunamai mama maya durataya mameta ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. You'll cross over the material energy by the strength of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction. So this is an open order to the entire world. Most people in the world are not going to be renunciates, especially in Kali Yuga. But if you follow this formula of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you'll always be protected from materialistic life, and furthermore, you'll always have Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's association. Is this a good answer? I also liked it when I read it in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I was elated, actually. I said, wow, this is the answer. Because everyone asks me this everywhere that I go. But I've always felt that I don't fully satisfy the heart. But after reading this, I can feel completely elated to share this with anyone and everyone that I meet. Thank you all very much for your kind participation. It's been a blast. And I hope that we can all come together in the future like this again. It's been a really wonderful time. And anyone that's interested in what we're doing here at BYS, you can speak with Kulta Karnava, and you can also speak with myself if you'd like. We're trying to create a revolution in consciousness by creating an atmosphere in which youth can come together, live together, practice Krishna consciousness, and inspire each other to give Krishna consciousness to other people. So anyone who's interested in Bhaktivedanta youth services and the things that we're trying to develop, please feel free to approach myself or Kulta Karnava, and unfortunately Achuchi Chaitanya Prabhu couldn't make it tonight. But if you all know Achuchi Chaitanya Prabhu, you can also speak with him. And I think Premita is also a good person to speak with, because he's well versed in these things. So thank you all very much. Pancha kalpatarumbisya kripa sindhur evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.